Oh, I hit him in his head. The second it hit the water, I was tight. All right. He hit the worm. Did it really get him in the mouth? Yeah. Told you they're aggressive here. And that also kind of tells you if you need extra abrasion resistance, go up in diameter. Because that's what's going to save your ass in the long run. It's not going to be a coating. It's not going to be a weave pattern. It's not going to be price. It's diameter, plain and simple. The more fibers that can hold on for dear life, the more going to be left when you get off that rock or get that fish close to the boat. Gentlemen, ladies, and anywhere in between, I welcome you all. And today we're going to have ourselves a little bit of fun picking on two of the latest and greatest fishing lines to hit the market from PowerPro and Daiwa. J-Braid's new Grand and PowerPro's Super Slick V2. I'm going to be focusing mainly on the 8-pound test and 20-pound test variations of each line. And I want to share with you my initial impressions during this honeymoon phase of, say, about 150 to 200 hours of total time spent fishing amongst all 4 different lines. And it's with that being said, let's get started. Right out of the gate, if I were to recommend a fishing line where you needed supple handling, sensitivity, great casting performance, where abrasion was not an issue at all, I would say go J-Braid. Right out of the gate. If you need a line that's going to be sensitive, handle well, but you need it to hold up, I'm probably going to tell you go Super Slick. The new coating that they're using on this line, it's not quite on the level of the Fireline Ultra 8 or the original Fireline, or even the Fireline, the braided line they offered years ago, which was, in my opinion, the most durable braided fishing line made. This has got the J-Braid Grand beat hands down. This coating, it makes it wiry. See how it kind of stands out? Or if I grab 20-pound braid from the J-Braid, see how it just kind of just falls flat and goes limp? Almost like the difference between a medium fast and a super slow action rod. That's where the handling differences come into play. When the lines are within their honeymoon, barely broken in stage, Super Slick is much more wiry, and that coating definitely makes it much more abrasion resistant. So if I went ahead and grabbed Jaws, and since the internet likes to use sandpaper to test abrasion resistance because, you know, bass's mouths are made out of silica, we're going to go ahead and take 20 pound and give it a pull. You can see how it doesn't even hold up at all whatsoever. You can see how it fuzzed up, peeled away, shredded up, it's dead. And if we take the PowerPro, get it right down the middle. There. No exaggeration, same tension. It's just a spring clamp with some 220 grit. This stuff, best stuff in the world. I love this sandpaper, by the way. Buy this stuff. This stuff lasts forever, too. Boom. Big difference right there in terms of abrasion resistance. However, you're not going to cast it as far as the Daiwa's J-Braid Grand in the same pound tests, especially on spinning gear. On bait casting gear, the difference is going to be kind of minimal. Once the spools get going, they shed line fairly quickly, fairly well. It's on spinning gear where you'll appreciate the differences between the two in terms of casting performance is concerned. And again, 8-pound test, it doesn't even make it an inch. And this is the 8-pound test PowerPro Super Slick. And actually made it an inch. And that also kind of tells you if you need extra abrasion resistance, go up in diameter. Because that's what's going to save your ass in the long run. It's not going to be a coating. It's not going to be a weave pattern. It's not going to be price. It's diameter, plain and simple. The more fibers that can hold on for dear life, the more going to be left when you get off that rock or get that fish close to the boat. And one other thing of note, if you compare these two 8-turn Alberto knots, the larger knot of the two is the PowerPro Super Slick. The diameter of the 8-pound Super Slick is it's bigger. It's a larger diameter. And when it comes to finesse applications, when you're fishing for trout, when you're in rivers targeting smallmouth, when you're fishing any kind of current, bottom bouncing, line watching, swinging baits and current, one of the most important things that you can have is a line that's easy to keep off the water. You don't have to worry about mending. This isn't fly fishing. That's regardless of the extra 10 or 12 feet I'm getting distance-wise, even though it's a smaller spool, it's easier to keep the line off the water. So when I'm fishing out at distance, if I'm swinging a minnow plug like this and current, like you see here, if I'm casting up on a bank and dragging a bait, I don't have to worry about that bow. There's just something about this line that when you cast it, the line floats. Still coming down, 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 still coming down. All the lines just finally hit the water. With the 8-pound PowerPro V2, it's a fraction of that time. And when I'm working this bait, at the angle that the line is to the lure, pretty much the line enters the water in plane. It doesn't bow or sag at all whatsoever, or at least a very little. For that application, you're making long casts in rivers. You don't have to worry about keeping the line off the water at the end of your cast. And when you are working baits back to your rod tip, if you're fishing 1/16 ounce lead heads, you don't have a lot of resistance when you're bottom bouncing to keep tension in the line. You're kind of jigging through the slack. You're kind of twitching through the slack to maintain contact without dragging baits in order to keep tension in line off the water. Much easier to do with the J-Braid. The PowerPro, it just gets that belly in the line. It's a lot more difficult to get and keep that line off the water. Advantage J-Braid. In terms of sensitivity, I can't tell the difference between the two. In terms of the feel, both of these lines are incredibly slick in feel. You hold these two lines, you run your hands over them. Both are very smooth, very slick. I'll give the edge to PowerPro in that department. It's a glassier feel. But, oddly enough, using rods with Torzite guides, using rods with Daiwa's AGS carbon fiber guides, the J-Braid's actually quieter. Is that an issue? Comparatively between the two, they're both quiet enough where it makes no difference to me at all. In terms of how slick they are, it's a wash. If you wanted, Braid, dude, check this. This is smooth. It's like monofilament, but it's braid. Yeah, you might want to show them the PowerPro, and for whatever that's worth, but you're not going to find a noticeable difference. It's right up there on the level of the ultra expensive. What's this stuff? The Maxima 8. Actually, now comparing this line between those two, I think both of those lines are actually slicker. Let's do the 3 back to back to back. This is the Maxima 8. That was the J-Braid. So this one, noticeable difference. But when you compare the two coatings, I mentioned a waxy coating earlier. Oh yeah, PowerPro is definitely smoother. But it has almost like a sticky, I don't want to say like sticky like, you got jelly on your hands and it dries all nasty and sticky. But it kind of wants to hold on to you. I guess it's like jelly, but it's not like it's slick. But when you're comparing these two, this is just like there's no coating on it at all. It just shoots. Your hands come through it, no friction at all whatsoever. Whereas this one, you do this, you can feel the heat build up. Is the best way to put it. So it's with all that being said, you can't go wrong with either line. They're priced right. They're cheaper than the super expensive ultra premium lines like this and a Finn's 40G, which in my opinion was one of the best lines ever made, but a lot of guys had issues with it desheathing and kind of bunching up on itself, which at $50 a pop, that's a tough pill to swallow. Me, myself personally, while I've seen people firsthand upon my recommendations who bought it have issues with it actually desheathing, I never had an issue. 2 years now. I reversed it after the first season. I didn't even have to reverse it. I kept using it. thousands and thousands of fish upon tens of thousands of casts, the Fins 40G was the greatest fishing line. Despite them lying through their teeth on the package that said it was 0.004 millimeters or 0.005 and it was really 0.010. It was twice the stated diameter on the package. It still cast better than pretty much anything else on the market, and it held up like iron. And my favorite line, I'm looking at these two very seriously. They're performing like I prefer, albeit the J-Braid is a little limp. I'm the kind of guy that likes to have a little body in my braid because I don't like tip wraps. I find myself fishing in windy conditions a lot, and I jig through the slack a lot. And if I'm throwing slack to get slack to then push and pull through it, sometimes I get a tip wrap, and that's a pain in the ass. Haven't gotten any with the J-Braid yet. Haven't been fishing in any windy conditions yet, so time will tell. One of the reasons why I wasn't the biggest fan of the Maxima in comparison to the Fins, making it my favorite line, was the wiry, the stiffer nature of the Fins 40G and the lack of tip wraps that I had, occur. Plain and simple. Again, PowerPro Super Slick, a little bit wiry. You're not going to have issues with tip wraps while it's new. The big question is, when I update this video, how is the PowerPro going to hold up? Is it going to turn into the old Super Slick where it was like a deflated tire? It'd be like driving a Huffy at 40 psi, and then 6-7 outings later, the line that you're actually fishing and using, and it's coming through the guides and going through the line rollers, the level line guides, it's now like driving a bike on 4 psi. And when you tie knots, you get this weird disfiguration because you have a tight section of weave that you're cinching down that makes up the knot to the area that now has lost all its pigment that was giving it body, and now it's like a deflated balloon, and you're using that to tie a knot, and then you have issues with abrasion and twisting and ribboning and all that kind of crap. So it's been a long time since I fished the original PowerPro Slick. I went back to PowerPro original 4-strand, and I went back to the original Super Slick early last year, just to get a benchmark, because I knew I was going to be testing a lot of new braids. I knew there was a new PowerPro coming out on the market, so I wanted to get an idea of how it handled. And again, I think it changed. It's not a bad line. They're just kind of lines that kind of keep pace with it, that are cheaper. Mainly the original.
Told you they're aggressive
I'm
here.
a big fan of the original J-Braid. It's very consistent. I've used it from trout to tuna. I went to destination locations to target trout and tuna, and I have that much trust in J-Braid. And for the money, come on, street price, you can't beat it. It's very consistent. Not many guys on the internet have any problems with it, and I've gone through a couple thousand yards of it and never had an issue. And I've probably tried, since J-Braid original came out, oh God, how many different braids have I used and put hundreds and hundreds of hours on? Oh, God, everything from like spider wire to Varivis to Avanta, JDM braids. I've probably tried 25 different braids since the original J-Braid came out, and none of them really set themselves apart. You have the Gliss that casts that like you broke off. The furthest casting lines in the market are Gliss and Nanofill, but they're not suck. And same thing could be said about the Ultra 8, which I have to do a long-term review on this stuff. And great durability, great casting performance, great sensitivity, everything you want in a fishing line. But you can't tie a uni knot or simple knots. You got to do, triple polymers. You got to do PR. You have to do FG knots if you want to get the bonuses of Fireline, which is that massively underrated package-rated break strength. This is really an 18-pound line. If you tie a PR knot, you tie a uni knot with this stuff, it's pulling out at, roughly 6 pound, if you're lucky. So it's with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed this, I'm going to update this video down the road. And again, that's why I kept on saying honeymoon period, because it takes a long time to evaluate braid. Initial impressions tell you one thing, but it's after you've put time on the line that you really can determine, is it worth your money? Did you get your money's back? Some of these new braids, $30, $40 fishing lines, there's tons of competition at the $15, $20 price point now, which, let's face it, guys, there's not a million manufacturers of braided fishing line. I think there's only like 5 or 6. And, they're churning out quality product. If it's consistent, it's a bonus. If it's super slick and abrasion resistant, it's an extra bonus. if the coatings hold up and the colors don't, destroy your cork and infect your reels, it's a bonus. These two, I'm not having issues with coatings coming off on me. They've been consistent thus far. I had a bad spool from a very expensive fishing line from this company. I ended up taking this stuff off in favor of the PowerPro, the Daiwa J-Braid, because their 8-pound test was much thicker. It was not .005, and at 8-pound test, I kind of don't want a very coarse textured fishing line. I want super smooth. I want a line that floats down to the water surface, like I mentioned before, much slower. It's easier to keep the line off the water. This wasn't doing it, and this stuff ain't cheap. If you go to their website, you can see their pricing. It's fairly durable stuff. The color doesn't fade because the fibers themselves are colored, it's not a coating. And we'll see going down the road how the 15 and 30 pound and 50 pound test hold up. But just as a comparison, this is a 6-strand line. There was no sandpaper on this one. I was like, this is a 6-strand line that's impervious to everything. Let's pull a little bit more off. I was like, geez. I'm going to have to go use this stuff for shark leaders. Okay. On par with the PowerPro in terms of abrasion resistance. So it's with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And until next time, guys, stay tuned. Got a lot more stuff coming down the road. And for you guys that made this far, if you like seeing early release content, stuff that I'm kind of still in the market for and, putting together and piecing different pieces together and blah, 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 and yada, yada. On my Patreon, I kind of clip things together before I do any edits or cuts and all the little annotations I add. I'll just throw it out there because a lot of you guys like that, extra content from me, and I appreciate that. It's still tough for me to admit that I have fans. I guess that's what I can call it. But people are all fans of hand models and fishing gear. So it's with that being said, guys, check me out on patreon.com/tackleadvisors. $2 a month is where the access to that kind of content starts. And any and all you guys that have contributed or consider contributing, I think over the past 2 years, I think I've had about 150 of you guys come through at one point in time with some moolah, and I thank you all. A lot of that money goes directly into this kind of stuff. So until next time, guys, tight lines. I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you soon.